As September ends and October starts, the hype for the Breeders' Cup Classic begins to loom. But there's still a few more final Breeders' Cup preps left to do. The weirdest one being the Preakness Stakes, which has taken the role of the final jewel of this year's Triple Crown all the way in October. So, very weird indeed. But what horses have decided to race in this very unique running of the Preakness Stakes? First up, we got Accession, who 7 months ago ran in the Rebel Stakes and ran a hell of a race, chasing after, at that time, Kentucky Derby favorite Nadal in the Rebel Stakes. However, he could only get second by about half a length. Since then, he hasn't raced, so his ability to continue such performances is definitely put into question. Is a long break gonna have any sort of negative side effects? We'll have to see, but I think it's very likely that that sort of performance is going to be a one-and-done deal. I don't think we're going to see that kind of run again. I think he's a toss, mainly just because of that long layoff. I just don't expect that he'll be in the same top shape that he was in that race. In post position number 2, we got a horse that I talked about very positively going into the Kentucky Derby, Mr. Big News, who proved big news when he finished third behind Authentic and 'Tis the Law. I think that with that, I have a affirmed opinion that Mr. Big News is big news, and he's going to run pretty good in the Preakness. Of course, it isn't going to be a done deal, but I have a good feeling that he'll have another really good performance coming from off the pace to fly late, because, trust me, I think that the Preakness Stakes should have a great fast pace that'll be perfect for a horse like Mr. Big News. The only thing he'll have to worry about is navigating through traffic, which wasn't a problem for him in the Kentucky Derby, but was a problem for him in the Bluegrass Stakes. So keep that in mind. As long as he gets the same sort of clean trip that he got in the Kentucky Derby, he shouldn't have any problems and should be coming home late. After Mr. Big News, we have Art Collector, who many people thought was going to be the greatest challenge for 'Tis the Law in the Kentucky Derby. Then he scratched, but now he's back and hopefully won't have any inconvenient foot injuries this time around, because I think Art Collector is the man. I think that he is going to win the Preakness, because I believe that Authentic, while still a pretty talented horse, doesn't have it in him to win the Preakness. I think Art Collector is a very deadly horse, and with Authentic and a few other horses on the lead early, he'll be able to stalk right behind and then fly on by like he did in the Bluegrass and in the Ellis Park Derby. He has a very good deadly late turn of foot that I think should not be messed with, and will help him win the Preakness Stakes. Right beside Art Collector is a horse that came second behind him in that Bluegrass Stakes, Swiss Skydiver. Swiss Skydiver was the top of the female division, which is why it was even more surprising when she was second in the Kentucky Oaks. But that's besides the point. She simply was outdone, tucked on the rail, lost a bit of ground trying to go to the outside, and She Dares the Devil was a better horse that day. But anyways, on to the Preakness. Can she beat the boys? She'll beat a couple, but I just don't think she'll win this. Considering how much she was well beaten in the Bluegrass, Art Collector definitely beat her by a couple of lengths in that race. I think that at best, Swiss Skydiver will get second or third, but she doesn't seem like the kind of filly who's going to win the Preakness. It takes a real filly to win a Triple Crown race against boys, and Swiss Skydiver doesn't fit that archetype. So, place or show bets maybe, but that's at best. In post position number 5, we got 1,000 Words. 1,000 Words is the very well-known Bob Baffert horse that was very infamous due to his late scratch in the Kentucky Derby. He's quite an interesting creature, and I will admit, I think he's a bit better than I originally gave him credit for in the Kentucky Derby. He definitely can handle mud, as shown in the Los Alamitos Futurity. That was definitely not a well-researched thing on my part, but I still feel like there are a few things he needs to prove. He needs to prove he can run outside of California, which is something that he hasn't yet done successfully, so we'll see if he does that today. One other factor is that since he is a front runner, he could actually be a problem for Authentic, who is also trained by Bob Baffert. If the two go to the lead, then they're going to be fighting each other and cause a fast pace, which is something that I predict. If that goes in that way, then Mr. Big News and Art Collector will be able to easily pass on by them and win the race. Either or. So, we'll see how that goes, if one horse will submit and let the other have his way. But, only time will tell. In post position number 6, we got Jesus Team, who is a huge toss for me. Sure, he does have a decent leg kick, but there are plenty of horses that have a better leg kick, including other long shots with not that great of a chance, like Live Your Beast Life. Even they look better than him, since Live Your Beast Life, while not that great, beat him in the Jim Dandy, which was supposed to be a breakout performance. So, toss. Next up, we got New York Traffic, who was a horse that I definitely backed up a lot in the Kentucky Derby, and then he disappointed. But you know what? I think he has a decent excuse. He came out of the race with lots of cuts, and I think that things should go smoother this time around. If things don't go smoother, then I'll probably have to look for other horses, but I have faith that he'll do better in the Preakness with less horses in the race. And hopefully he won't get his legs all cut up this time. So yeah, I'm definitely keeping him in mind. Even after that Kentucky Derby performance, I'll give him another chance this time around. In a very similar boat, there is Max Player, who didn't have a significant drop in quality in the Kentucky Derby, finishing 5th after running multiple thirds in major races like the Belmont and the Travers Stakes. So a lot of people will be more keen to play him, and I understand that. But for now, I'd say that at best, he's a substitute for New York Traffic. If you have faith that the Kentucky Derby was just a fluke on his part, then go with him. But if you want a horse that's more consistent and a little safer to play with, then just go with Max Player, because he delivers every time. And then there's the horse of the hour, Authentic. Authentic does have a very good shot to win the Preakness, as his only real challenge for the lead is going to be Thousand Words, who is another Bob Baffert horse, so it's very likely that Bob Baffert will choose not to let them face off against each other and thus hinder each other's chances. So, with that, Authentic could have an easy chance to go to the lead and set another very fast pace and win. But it's definitely not going to be that simple. With Art Collector coming from behind, he'll definitely have to give it everything he has to try and hold off horses like Art Collector and Mr. Big News. He has to have a lot of heart if he's going to want to hold off Art Collector especially. So, while he does have a good chance at winning, I don't think he has a guaranteed chance of victory. He ain't a clear favorite. In post position number 10, we got the Preakness Stakes winner, Pneumatic, who was 3rd in the Matt Winn Stakes behind Maxfield, and 4th in the Belmont Stakes. So, a couple of Matt performances, but I just think of him as a bit of an inferior version of New York Traffic, since he finished behind him in the Matt Winn Stakes, and then he lost to Max Player in the Belmont Stakes, so he's inferior to both of the major place bet horses. So, he's kind of a toss for me. I don't care that he won the Preakness Stakes. That's a listed stakes race. Not much of an achievement for a horse that's supposed to be trying to win the Grade 1 Preakness Stakes. And lastly, we got Live Your Beast Life, who is another 30-1 shot, like Jesus Team, who finished behind him in the Jim Dandy. Before this, he was a complete nobody, winning an allowance race, but most recently was 2nd in the Jim Dandy, defeating fellow Preakness runner Jesus Team. What does that say about him? Well, considering how late charging he was, I think that he's a interesting horse. I think he's spicy. If he can come from behind and fly late, just like he did in the Jim Dandy, and continue to improve, then maybe he could have a chance at a major upset. But I think you should only pick him if you really want to take a good risk and pick a deep closer to try and win the Preakness Stakes. That's the only way I can recommend Live Your Beast Life. And those are all the horses in the Preakness Stakes. So, for my final choices, there are a lot of ways I could have sliced this race, but I think my final choices are Art Collector for the win. I have a good feeling that he'll be waiting to pounce on Authentic. Authentic will be in the lead, and Art Collector will be right behind him in third or fourth, waiting for him to weaken. And considering how he did it in the Bluegrass Stakes, I think Art Collector can do that all over again. Behind him, I think New York Traffic is a great place bet, and then there's Mr. Big News right behind them. And those are my bets. Comment down what your bets are going to be for the Preakness Stakes, and see you guys next time.